You can't just stand around here like you belong. This is a private HOA community." The words pierced the still morning air like a siren. A blonde woman in a pastel polo, arms crossed, sunglasses perched like a badge of honor, barked them. Without hesitation. The garden club she just left froze mid-chatter behind her. The sidewalk shimmered in summer heat. Birds scattered from a nearby hedge. A toddler paused his scooter as his father's grip on the leash tightened. Somewhere, a sprinkler kept ticking. The man she shouted at didn't move. He stood by a modern white-painted house with sharp glass. Windows and solar shingles. Silent, still. Khakis crisp. Shirt fitted, posture upright. His presence didn't match her insult. But her voice rose like sirens calling backup. He didn't flinch, didn't reply, didn't look away. His silence unsettled everyone more than any outburst could have. She stepped closer, voice sharpening. "I'll have security here in seconds. You people don't get to loiter where children play." From the porch, a dog barked once. A door creaked open nearby, but quickly shut again. An elderly couple across the street pretended to trim roses. Eyes peeked from behind blinds, watching. If you believe no one should be judged by their skin or assumed to be lesser in their own neighborhood, type respect in the comments. He finally moved. Slowly, calmly, he reached into his pocket. No rush, no aggression, just deliberate control. What emerged was not an ID, not a wallet. A smart home key fob. Click. The garage door began rising with a hum. Inside, a matte black electric SUV gleamed in the light. The woman's smirk cracked. He stepped forward. His voice soft but slicing through the heat. "Is there a reason you're harassing the owner of this property?" Gasps whispered from multiple directions. The toddler's father took a cautious step back. The rose-trimming couple froze. Her jaw twitched. "Wait, you, what?" He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. The porch lights flicked on behind him. Cameras turned toward her. Her own voice, sharp, offensive, echoed from the speaker on his phone. "You've been on HOA notice 3 times this year for trespassing," he said, still calm. "Next time I'll file," she stammered. I thought someone said." He turned fully toward her now. "I'm Marcus Reed. I bought this house last year. After your foreclosure." The world stopped. Her mouth hung open. Her knees faltered. A neighbor's kid dropped a basketball and it rolled into the street unnoticed. He stepped inside his garage, pressed the button, and the door slowly shut behind him, leaving her standing in the sun, red-faced and stunned. The silence after the garage door closed wasn't just relief, it was ritual. Marcus leaned against the cool metal of the SUV and let his eyes adjust to the dim light. He didn't need to yell outside. He'd already won that above him. Shelves were lined with old moving boxes still labeled from 3 cities ago: Boston, Oakland, Houston. Places where being calm had saved his job, his sanity, and once his life. This house, this neighborhood. This one had history. He walked through the mudroom, entered a sleek kitchen filled with brushed steel and earth-tone counters. On the wall above the dining table hung a framed photo, a small brick house, half-burned, with a boy out front holding a backpack too big for his shoulders. His father stood beside him, broad-shouldered, arms folded, face unreadable. That boy had been Marcus. That house? Just 4 blocks from where he stood now. Back then, his family had been the first in the area. First black family on the street. First to be denied mailbox access. First to have the HOA misplace their payments. First to have neighbors call code enforcement on their flowers being too wild. His mother used to joke, "They fear anything that blooms without permission." He never forgot that line. Now, years later, he'd returned, but not out of nostalgia. He'd returned with purpose. The foreclosure had been a matter of timing. Karen and her husband had bought the house in 2009, the peak of entitlement and easy credit. When her husband passed and bills rose, the community had stopped offering favors. That's how it usually went, smiles until someone falls behind. He hadn't celebrated the auction. He just watched, bid, bought it quietly, renovated it even quieter. Changed nothing about the exterior, no flashy trim, no big mailbox, no new car in the driveway. Just presence. He wanted them to notice the man first. And fail. He stepped into his home office, bookshelves lined with urban planning journals, case studies, legal codes. On the desk, blueprints for a new community outreach center. One block over, because Marcus wasn't just a homeowner. He was a city redevelopment advisor. He helped design neighborhoods, fund city beautification projects, approve or kill construction plans. He had more control over that street than Karen could comprehend, and she had screamed at him like he was the trespasser. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about history folding back into itself. He clicked open an email. Final plans for neighborhood park redesign. Approval pending. Her backyard bordered the lot. A smirk almost touched his lips. Instead, he opened his planner and jotted 2 words for Monday's agenda. HOA audit. He wouldn't yell. He would work. You heard what happened on Sycamore? That sentence echoed through yoga classes, dog parks, Facebook mom groups, and HOA meeting threads within hours. By sunset the same day, it wasn't just a story. It was the story. Marcus didn't post anything. He didn't need to. The Ring camera footage had done the work for him. Not his, but the neighbors uploaded to a local subreddit by someone labeled True Patriot Dad 89. The caption read, HOA Karen tries to evict a black man. He owns the house she lost. 1.2 million views by morning. By noon, it was on TikTok. Someone had added a dramatic piano score and slow zoom in on Karen's face when he said, I sign your checks? Except he hadn't said that. They just wanted him to. He got texts from coworkers. A call from a local councilwoman who half laughed, half apologized. And one from the city planner's office. That's the guy who's leading the community redesign? Ironic. Back in the neighborhood, subtle shifts began. On Monday morning, one of the rose trimming couples waved stiffly from across the street. The next-door teen, usually glued to her earbuds, paused to say, Hey, just wanted to say that was wild. And cool, what you did. He nodded, said thank you. Then came the symbolic moment. Tuesday afternoon. Same sidewalk. Same time. Same weather. Karen walked past. No sunglasses. No friends. No pastel polo. Just a faded t-shirt, oversized sunglasses, and silence. Marcus was watering his garden. The hose hissed softly. Lavender brushed against his ankles. Bees hovered, unbothered. She paused, looked at the plants. There. Nice. She muttered. He didn't stop watering. Didn't even look up. But behind her, another woman appeared. Black, mid-30s, pushing a stroller. She nodded at Marcus. And then she said it clearly for Karen to hear, You've got the best garden on the block. Always have. Karen froze. Her lips parted as if she wanted to reclaim authority, but nothing came out. Marcus met the woman's eyes, gave a warm nod, and said, Appreciate that. That nod wasn't just thanks. It was an alliance. Quiet, public, and uncheckable. By Thursday, the gossip had grown more than the grass. Is he on the board now? I heard he's planning a youth center. My cousin saw him at City Hall last week. I didn't even know he lived here. And through it all, Marcus stayed exactly the same. Got water. Walked, worked, let them talk. Because this wasn't about noise. It was about roots. And this was deeper than any of them thought. It arrived in a cream-colored envelope tucked under his doormat like a warning. HOA notice of violation, all caps bold, printed in dark blue ink. Marcus opened it with one hand while sipping coffee with the other. The offense? Unapproved landscaping modifications, he chuckled. The lavender was native. The front stones were recycled. The mulch was HOA standard. He'd submitted the exact plan 6 months ago, with time-stamped confirmation. He placed the letter on the table beside the other 2 he'd received this week. Exterior paint is too reflective. Trash bins not aligned to community standards. All. Sent after the garage incident went viral. All from the same signature at the bottom. HOA President Susan Whitmore, Karen's best friend. Of course, he didn't respond with anger. Just emailed, "Please see attached documentation for prior approvals." Attached everything. Added legal language. CC'd the city compliance officer. And then he went for a walk around the cul-de-sac, past the Whitmore house, past the garden club, past the pool gates. Neighbors noticed. They always did now. At the mailbox, an older man in golf attire looked up from his junk mail and said, "They're trying to rattle you. Petty games." Marcus offered a small smile. Let them play. Behind closed doors, the pushback escalated. Curran had been quietly reinstated to the HOA advisory board. The bylaws were under review. One clause had been dusted off. From 1998, home exteriors must preserve historical community aesthetics. Susan held it up in the next HOA meeting like it was scripture. Marcus attended, sat near the back, silent, observing. When Susan motioned to restrict non-standard plantings, a few murmurs of agreement followed. But so did hesitation. A new voice, Mrs. Tang from 3 doors down, raised her hand. "My daughter's been playing in Mr. Reed's yard lately. It's the only house with butterflies." A pause, then another voice. "I don't see the problem, honestly. It's better than what we had before." Susan tried to regain control. "It's about consistency, harmony." But the room didn't look convincing. Marcus remained quiet. The next morning, another envelope appeared, this time hand-delivered. But it wasn't a notice. It was a petition. Nominate Marcus. Reed for HOA board. Already signed by 8 residents. He read it twice, then placed it beside the violations. Balance, it seemed, was shifting. Not with a roar. With gravity. The HOA board didn't expect a presentation, especially not this one. It wasn't loud. There were no dramatic speeches, no fiery call-outs. Just Marcus, standing in front of a sleek display monitor, calm and collected, with an architectural rendering pulled up behind him. Phase 1, Community Garden and Learning Center, he began. Privately funded. Non-resident dues impacted. The room sat straighter. Phase 2, green corridor along the drainage path adds walkability, increases property value, solves the flooding issue behind Whitmore's. Susan blinked. And Phase 3, micro-library kiosks near the mailboxes, literacy grants already secured. He clicked through blueprints, charts, and impact studies. His voice never rose. His tone never shifted. He didn't ask for applause. Brought facts. And facts made noise of their own. After the presentation, Susan cleared her throat. Impressive. Though we'll need a legal review. Marcus nodded. Already sent to city zoning. Silence. Then clap soft at first. Then, R.E.L. Mrs. Tang, the family from Sycamore. Even the retired firefighter who once called the police over Marcus's suspicious walking pace. Karen wasn't in the room, but her silence outside had been growing louder too. She barely made eye contact on her evening walks, and neighbors had started to glance her way with something between pity and distance. because while she unraveled Marcus was building, he spent mornings at the nearby community school helping paint murals with local kids. Afternoons were spent in planning meetings, evenings in his garden, always just visible enough for the neighborhood to see. And one Friday, something small but seismic happened. A boy on a skateboard wiped out near his driveway. Marcus helped him up. The boy's mom, white, flustered, mid-30s, rushed over. "I'm so sorry," she said. "He wasn't watching." Marcus held up a hand. "He's okay, just a scrape." Then the boy said, "Are you the guy who built the butterfly house?" Marcus smiled. "Working on it." And just like that, another connection was made. Not with power. But presence. Not with titles. But trust. By the end of that week, 5 more people signed the petition to put him on the board. He still hadn't asked. They just knew. "I object to this circus." Karen's voice cut through the room like a snapped violin string. The quarterly HOA meeting had been civil until she stormed in. No agenda, no invite. Just rage. She stood in the back, trembling with entitlement. Pink blazer, oversized sunglasses, and a file folder clutched to her chest like it might save her. "I helped write the bylaws for this neighborhood. And I'm telling you, this man is not what he seems." Heads turned. A few whispered. Others leaned back slowly. Marcus stayed seated. Hands folded. Face unreadable. Karen marched forward, dropped the folder on the board table. Inside, grainy photos of Marcus walking in the neighborhood. Copies of the violation letters. A highlighted email thread from 2014, back when he was in a different district. "Is this who you want representing us?" She snapped, pointing at him. "Someone who played the victim and now manipulates the system to look like a hero?" Susan shifted uncomfortably beside her. Marcus took a breath. And stood. One step forward. No anger in his voice. No rush in his rhythm. "Would you like me to respond, or should I let your paranoia speak for itself?" The room TNCD. Karen scoffed. "Deflection. You think you're better than the rest of us?" "No," Marcus said. "I just stopped needing your approval to exist." His voice was calm, surgical. He turned toward the board, not to Karen. "For anyone who wants the truth, yes, that's me in those photos, walking, watering my lawn, helping a kid who fell off a bike." He tapped the folder gently. "This is what fear looks like when it loses control." Murmurs swelled. Karen tried again. "He's changing everything. He wants to erase what we built." A voice from the back spoke up. Mrs. Tang, firm, unshaken. "No, Karen. He's fixing what you kept broken." A few others nodded. Then someone clapped. And another. Marcus didn't smile. He just looked at Karen and said, "This neighborhood never belonged to you. It belongs to all of us. You just got used to pretending otherwise." Karen's eyes flickered, her breath caught, and for the first time, she had no words. The headline came 3 days later. From targeted to trusted, local man redefines community. Leadership in HOA showdown published on the front page of the Oak Ridge City Times. Marcus didn't expect it. He hadn't asked for it, but someone had been watching that board meeting. Someone with a camera, a notepad, and a sense of timing. The story went viral again, not in the messy, meme-filled way of the first video, but in a thoughtful, polished, grown folks are talking now kind of way. Photos of the butterfly garden. Quotes from neighbors. A pull quote from Mrs. Tang. He didn't raise his voice once, but somehow the whole room listened. Marcus sat on his porch the next morning, article in hand, coffee untouched. Across the street, the couple with the roses waved. The boy on the skateboard zoomed past and called, "Nice article, Mr. Reed." And then his phone buzzed. A new email. Subject: City Civic Award nomination, Marcus Reed. He blinked. Read it again. Then scrolled further. Another email. Weed. Love to have you speak at our Urban Equity Forum next month. And another, Mr. Reed, your leadership is inspiring. Would you consider joining the city's Planning Advisory Council? He stared at the screen, not with excitement, but with quiet calculation, because every invitation came with expectations. Every spotlight burned a little hotter than the last. Inside, he opened his closet, reached for the old photo of the burned brick house. The one where his father stood tall, jaw set, eyes heavy. He remembered that day. The city said the fire was an accident, but the neighbors never looked them in the eye again. That's when Marcus learned the truth. Change never comes easy. And it rarely comes kind. He walked into the garden, knees in the dirt, gloves on, pulling weeds the old way. That's how he stayed grounded. The mail arrived at noon. One envelope stood out, handwritten. No return address. He opened it slowly. Inside. Note. I was wrong. Completely. I see that now. K. He stared at it. No excuses. No justifications. Just acknowledgement. He placed it in the same folder that once held the violation letters. Because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come without noise, without cameras, without applause. Just ink on paper. The metal sign came down on a thud. Monday. HOA rules enforced, no trespassing. It had hung at the front gate for 22 years. Rusted corners. Screws worn silver from heat and age. Nobody questioned it until Marcus asked a simple question. Trespassing from where and by whom? The board voted to remove it. 5-2. Susan abstained. Karen didn't attend. No fanfare. No announcement. Just two groundskeepers and a drill. But to some of the newer families on Sycamore Lane, it was like a weight lifted. As if the very air got lighter when the screws came out. The ripple kept spreading. A row of white-only images on the founder's wall at the community clubhouse, replaced with a new mural commissioned by Marcus, painted by local high school artists. Mixed hands planting trees. Kids playing under a sun shaped like a compass. And at the center, bold script, rooted in respect. At first, a few grumbled. This is all politics. Do we really need to change everything? Was it ever that bad? But even the doubters noticed the impact. The events changed. Block parties now had music that reflected everyone's culture: reggae next to classic rock, jazz near country. Elder neighbors chatted with teenagers they once ignored. A local DJ spun records on the same lawn where a black teen had once been told to turn that music down. Change didn't shout. At HUMMED. One afternoon, Susan stopped Marcus outside. The mailboxes. Her eyes darted side to side. No pastel. No clipboard. I read the article again, she murmured. Didn't realize you grew up nearby. He nodded. A few blocks down. A pause. Have you ever thought about being board president? He raised an eyebrow. She raised both hands. Just a thought. He smiled but didn't answer, because the win wasn't in the title. It was in the shift. That week, a biracial couple, who'd been quietly renting, finally closed on their first home in the neighborhood. The welcome committee, once a stiff two-woman duo, arrived with cookies and a handwritten note that read, "You belong here. We're glad you stayed." The husband shook his head in disbelief. I guess we picked the right time to move in. Marcus passed them later on his evening walk. They waved. He waved back. And kept walking. Because while some people fought to keep power, he'd learned how to share it. The email hit his inbox at 7:42 a.m. Subject line: formal complaint. Conflict of interest allegation. Marcus stared at the screen. Then read it again. It wasn't from the HOA. It wasn't even from a neighbor. It was from the city ethics office. Someone had accused him anonymously of using his influence on the redevelopment committee to benefit properties he owned. Attached. were screenshots of neighborhood zoning maps. Highlighted, annotated. It was nonsense, but dangerous. Nonsense. If taken seriously, the investigation could freeze his entire project. Put him on administrative leave. Strip his credibility in city development. He didn't need a signature to know where it came from. Karen. She disappeared for weeks. No outbursts. No petitions. No gossip trail. But this was her style now. Quiet sabotage. The kind that didn't need to shout to hurt. Marcus leaned back in his chair, jaw tight, eyes burning behind stillness. He felt it this time. Not rage. Fatigue. Because after everything, the dignity, the restraint, the patience, here came one more blow, dressed in bureaucracy and shaded in racism. He opened the documents, organized them, and built a rebuttal. Filed proof of transparent ownership history, development contracts, legal zoning paths, all above board. But it wasn't the paperwork that stung. It was the message behind it. You will never be safe here, no matter how kind, no matter how calm. That night, he didn't walk in the garden, didn't answer calls. He sat in silence. And for the first time in years, he almost regretted coming back. Until a knock. He opened the door to find a young girl, 12, maybe 13. Brown skin, braids. Nervous. She held out a white envelope. My mom said to give you this. Inside, a card, handwritten. You don't know us, but we've been watching. You made us feel like we could breathe here again. Thank you. We've got your back. The Johnson family, Sycamore Lane. His chest rose, slowly. Something loosened. He looked up. The girl was still standing there. He said, Tell your mom I needed that more than she knows. The girl smiled. Then I ran, because Karen might have tried to break his reputation. But his legacy wasn't built in silence anymore. It was built for people, and they weren't going anywhere. The morning of the ceremony arrived with the kind of quiet only earned by years of noise. Not the kind of noise that comes from traffic or celebration. The kind that lingers after conflict. The kind that sinks into wood and brick and lawn. Marcus stood at the edge of his porch, tie undone, mug in hand. His fingers tapped against the ceramic in slow, thoughtful rhythm. The garden, now in full bloom, didn't ask anything of him. That was the beauty of it. It kept growing whether people watched or not. Today, though, everyone would be watching. Down the street, folding chairs were being set up along the sidewalk. Blue ribbon coiled neatly around the new signpost waiting to be unveiled. Kids darted past carrying bottled water and cardboard welcome signs. A few neighbors were already trickling in dressed in palas, sundresses, even a few suits. He recognized most of them. Some had once avoided eye contact with him. Now they waved. Across the street, Mrs. Tang adjusted the lapels of her husband's jacket and pointed toward Marcus's home. She smiled when she caught his eye, gave him a little nod that meant more than words. And beyond her, parked just out of view, was a news van. Of course, this had become a story. But for Marcus, it had never been about being seen. It had always been about the unseen. The kids who walked the block knew which lawns not to step on. The mail carrier who used to skip certain porches when new families moved in. The boy who got told to slow down while riding his bike, even though he was barely pedaling. He wasn't just here to win. He was here to make sure the rules changed, and they had. But it didn't mean the scars disappeared. He went back inside, tied his navy blue tie with a perfect half Windsor, and pulled on the suit jacket his father once called his armor for white rooms. Then he opened a drawer, took out the letter Karen had written, the one with no excuses, no fight. Just, I was wrong. Completely. I see that now. He folded it gently and slipped it into his inside pocket. Not as a trophy, as proof. That dignity real. Dignity, doesn't require revenge. It only requires patience. The ceremony began at noon. A podium stood beside the new entrance sign. Rows of chairs faced it, filled with local families, council members, educators, and a few state guests. Camera crews hovered at the edges. Children fidgeted in their seats. The mayor spoke first formally, smiling. Reading from a prepared statement. Then came the city planning director, who thanked Marcus for not only inspiring structural change but restoring integrity to the word neighbor. The applause was polite, measured. Then the microphone was passed to someone unexpected. A teenager. The same girl who once delivered a thank you note from her mother. Now in a blazer 2 sizes too big, she unfolded a wrinkled piece of notebook paper. "My name is Kalela," she said, voice shaking a little. "And before Mr. Reed helped build this place, my mom told me to never walk past this block. Now, it's where I wait for the bus, where I meet friends, where we planted sunflowers." The crowd grew still. "I used to think people like us had to stay quiet to stay safe. But Mr. Reed showed me that calm doesn't mean small. And now, I want to be a city planner too." A pause. Then applause. Not polite, but real. Marcus closed his eyes for just a moment. Let it wash over him. When it was his turn, he didn't walk to the podium quickly. He took his time, the kind of time his father never got, the kind of time so many men like him had been denied, rushed out of rooms where they didn't belong. He reached the mic, waited until even the cameras stopped adjusting. Then spoke. "There's a strange weight that comes with being the first person someone decides doesn't belong. I've carried that weight in neighborhoods, classrooms, boardrooms, but I've also learned the strongest thing you can ever do is not push back with anger. It's to hold your space quietly, consistently, until the people who tried to erase you have to sit in your shadow." You could hear a pin drop. "I didn't come back to punish this neighborhood. I came back because it raised me wrong, and I wanted to raise it right." A pause. He let the wind rustle the papers in front of him. "So today isn't about me. It's about every kid who walks past that sign and knows they don't have to prove they belong. They already do." He stepped back. Silence again. Then the mayor gestured. 2 kids, Kalela and the skater boy, walked up together, scissors in hand. The ribbon was cut. The Marcus Reed Community Garden and Learning Pathway officially open. The rest of the day unfolded like a soft celebration. Food trucks lined the curb. Music drifted from portable speakers. A muralist spray-painted butterflies across the garden wall, bright orange wings rising from cracked gray brick. Marcus walked among the crowd, greeted by handshakes, hugs, nods of respect. Some people apologized. Others just said, "Thank you." He accepted all of it, not because he needed praise, but because they needed to give it. Healing wasn't just for the harmed. It was for the ashamed. And he had room for both. Near the end of the event, as people began packing up and the sun softened its light across the lawn, Marcus wandered to the corner of the street, the spot where it all began, where Karen had first told him he didn't belong. And there she was, standing alone again, holding a paper plate with untouched cake, looking not furious, but tired. She didn't approach him, but when he walked her way, she didn't move. They stood a few feet apart. No crowd, no cameras, just air and everything that had passed between them. She finally spoke. "I thought I was protecting something," she said quietly, "but I was just trying to keep it frozen." He didn't reply. Didn't need to. She took a breath. "You didn't just change this place, you made it grow." Then she held out a small envelope. "For the Learning Center Fund." He took it. Not because he needed it, because she needed to give it. She turned to leave. Paused. And said, "Thank you for not becoming what I expected." Then I walked away. Later that night, Marcus sat on the porch again. The garden lights blinked. On automatically, insects buzzed softly. Wind moved through lavender like a memory. He opened the envelope. Inside, a check. And a note for the kids, so they can walk where I once blocked the road.